All right, we're ready to go here. Nick, appreciate you being here.
Thanks for having me.
To be my co-host. And today we've got a dude here that's a person I've looked up to for probably 12, 13 years, I guess, since I joined this crazy YPO thing in Chicago. And Scott and a couple other friends of mine, now friends of mine I didn't know well, were leading this YPO chapter in the Chicagoland area. And man, when I saw this guy and how he carried himself in front of all these other CEOs and how he engaged with everybody, you could see everybody looked up to this guy, right? I was like, man, that's the guy I got to know, right? This is Scott Robinson, my friend that's here today. Nick, you're gonna have a blast as we interview him and find out a little about his story and how he's gotten to be the Scott Robinson that so many people love today. So, entrepreneur. Coach, executive recruiter. So many things about you, Scott, and I'm sure there's things I don't know that we're going to dig into today. So great. Scott Robinson, welcome to Ditch Digger CEO, baby.
Glad to be here. Looking forward to it. Always love spending time with you, Gary.
Well, you know what? We've been blessed to have a lot of great people on this podcast already with the 32 or 3 I think we've got now, Chris, right? 32, 33, yeah. 33 podcast, and but that this is one I look forward to as much or more than any. So Scott, we always dig deep, and I think you maybe listen to a few of these, whatever.
Yep.
We like to dig deep, like to find out where did this Scott come from? How did this Scott become the Scott that he is? That's become this leader in his industry, leader as a coach to many. A guy that married way up in a wife like Deb.
Yeah, that's true.
That's an amazing friend of ours and a beautiful woman and an amazing family with 2 great kids. So right. We're gonna start with the beginning. Nick, we'll start with the what was your childhood like? Yeah. Tell me where the nickel bouncing out, but where you got this work ethic to be who you are today.
Sure.
And I think. Should we do more of a? I've got a few people that pinged me about the podcast that they love it, but they said, "Is there a way we could do more of an intro of the person, who they are, what they do ahead of time?" Maybe we should do that just in an intro. Should we do it right now? Talk about
sure.
We got this right here. So why don't we let Scott start out with who are you today, Scott, and then we're going to go back. Okay. So that I think that's a good way
reverse
for people to
engineer this thing.
Yeah. Let's do that. Who are you today? What do you do? And then we're going to go back to the start.
Yeah. Who I am today is, I guess primarily, I know this sounds probably a little corny, but I'm a proud father and a happily married guy. That's who I am. I mean, I'm a business owner. We do executive coaching and leadership development. We do retained search at the executive senior level, presidents, CEOs, vice presidents, board of directors searches for client companies. I hate to define who I am by what I do, but I'm still doing it. So that's kind of where we always go. It's kind of the cocktail party talk, if you will.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm a happy guy that's been extremely lucky and has been introduced to literally hundreds of people along the way that have made me who I am today.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Awesome. And so your business today, coaching, executive search, can you go into that a little bit?
Sure. Yeah, we help our clients, and I say that, help our clients, because that's who I like to work with. That's who we like to work with, are people that truly view us as a partner and look at what we do as helping them. Mm-hmm. We try to assess their culture and assess what would be a good fit in an organization. I think that's the primary thing that we do, both from a coaching perspective and a recruiting perspective, is really try to understand what makes the business tick. I think that's how we can add the most value. So as we're recruiting and going out into the field and looking for senior executives to fill voids or open positions within a company, I'd tell you the primary thing we're looking for is culture fit above and beyond everything else. Is this a person that can slide into this organization and fit quickly? Or is it somebody that I use a lot of where you were going before with tell me about yourself. That's my very first question for anybody listening to this that's ever going to be interviewed. If somebody says, tell me about yourself, use that as an opportunity, because it really is. Because I'll give you a real quick example. If we're doing a search for a vice president of marketing with a $500 million company, I'll just use a small to medium-sized company. And one candidate, let's say they were born and raised in New York City. Their father was a general counsel for IBM, and their mother was a philanthropist. That tells me a lot about who that individual is. And I interview another person. Let's say this company we're working for is a $500 million plastic injection molding business. The other candidates that we interview, or one of the other candidates might be, his father worked in a steel mill, was a blue collar guy. He grew up in a blue collar neighborhood, and his mother was a nurse. Automatically that tells me the differentiation between who those two people are and how they might fit in a $500 million manufacturing company versus a suit and tie environment, something like that.
So think about that, Nick. It really digs into understanding the paradigm, where that person came from, to understand where they might be a fit.
Yeah. How often are you running into businesses where you see an issue in the culture of the business that might be unfitting to most executives, and that is the reason for their issues with hiring?
Yeah, that's a great question, Nick. I would tell you what typically happens is a lot of companies try to hire up. The Ivy League education. Wanting somebody that comes from big corporate America, and if they're a small to medium-sized company, but they figure if I hire somebody from well-known, high-end, high-brand companies, I'm going to get this great talent.
Yeah.
And they probably are a great talent, but they may not be a culture fit. And I will just tell you that time and time again, the organization, if you're not a culture fit, will figure out a way to spit you out.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter how good you are. I'd rather have a person who's an 80% performer and a great culture fit than somebody who's a 95% performer and a terrible culture fit.
So this is why you've never recommended these Ivy League guys or gals to the Rabine group, I'm guessing.
But that would be one reason.
All right.
They wouldn't be a fit.
Yeah. Well, hey, so I've had great experiences with Scott, and actually, not use Scott when I should have, and just recently it's happened. Recently, I called you about an executive that we ended up hiring. Somebody we found. We got a good group of people we hired. And Nick knows the story a little bit. Hired from a great group of people and ended up with a person we hired, right? And this person lasted 4 months.
Yeah.
And really, not a bad person. I mean, really nice person. I thought probably a fit for the role that they were taking on, but not a fit for the culture that we thought they were, right?
Yeah.
So it didn't work out. So
Right.
what did it cost us for that 4 months, right? To have that person on board and a parting gift that we had to give as that person left, right? And what would it cost to hire you for that? I think we might have saved a few bucks hiring you.
I'm sure of it. Yeah. Lost opportunity is an expensive lesson.
It is. And I could have gone back to you and said, Scott, get back on board here. We didn't get the right fit. Find somebody else, and you'd probably give me a little discount anyway the second time around, right?
I'd always give you a discount, Gary.
Yeah, I strive to get one. But anyway, and then I've had the experience of we've had tough times. I've talked about on my podcast, where we just really had some issues in our businesses and had to downsize, right? We had great people had to go in order for us to right size the business to continue on. And we had that happen 4 years ago, I think it was. And I went to you, Scott. I said, Scott, I've got a great CFO. He's a really good person. Yeah. I think he'd be a fit for our future, but he's not right now with our downsizing and where we have to go. And I remember how you fit him. It was amazing because you found a few companies that wanted him, wanted to interview him or interested in him. He had ended up having 2 or 3 that really wanted him, and then he chose a fit that I wouldn't have thought would have been a fit if I would have. But you dug into it.
It was a great fit.
He dug into it. This guy is just blossomed in this great organization.
He's a rock star.
He's a rock star there. They love him.
Yeah.
The president or a couple of VPs and the leaders of the business are members of Bull Valley, so I could see him once in a while. These people. Right. And actually Mark shows up too sometime. But anyway, they got smiles on their face when they talk about Mark. Yeah. I can say Mark Smolinski. What a great guy he is.
Yeah.
So it's really fun when I see, I felt so terrible about losing somebody like him.
Right.
But yet to see him in an organization he's in to be just blossoming and kicking butt, it's a blast.
Yeah.
But it was you that helped him find the fit, and it was never about how much was in it for your organization. It was all about you're going to find the fit, and I don't know. Again, I don't know what the variable cost is or how much you made or didn't make, but All I know is he felt, and I felt that you totally were out for his best interest first.
Right.
And there's some maybe more money in another fit, but culturally he found what was perfect. So it's awesome to see that.
Yeah, it was great. I'm a firm believer, and truly I am. What goes around comes around, and karma and all the rest of those adages like that, and the golden rule. That's me. I truly believe that.
Absolutely. So now I can't imagine how much fun it is to be doing what you do, whether it's that or coaching, right? So think about, Nick, if you're in Scott's shoes or his team's shoes, when somebody's in a position in their life, they're not the best position, they're looking for something, they're not happy with where they're at, or they're not in a job, right?
Right.
And then Scott and his team can find a great fit, right? How cool it is to look back 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 years later to see that person excel, right, in a position they help find.
Yeah, it truly is. I'm lucky. I'm in a position that we're able to help individuals and companies and participate. That's the part I love the most, is when you become ingrained in the culture and the fabric of the business. It's not just a vendor. I don't like vendor relationships. I love when we're asked to come in and really get granular and really understand the full team of the organization and what makes it tick, and then have an ongoing relationship with that company. Even after what we're being paid to do is done, we continue the relationship after that and really become a part where we've been invited to companies, clients' Christmas parties, and we get invited to their strategic planning meetings, and we just become an extension of who they are. In fact, I find myself often when talking about client companies, I catch myself saying we. We do this, and we think like that, and we like to do these things, and it's not we, it's really them, but it's we, because you understand their culture, you're on their team. I am. Right? So that's the fun stuff. That's awesome. That's fun.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, and at the executive level, I mean, it requires so much of your time that it's such a life commitment. It's really, you're offering them a whole new life almost. Right. It's a big portion.
Yeah, and that's the coaching business, which we'll talk about, I'm sure, somewhere in here. But the coaching business to me is truly a passion. The search business was a way for me to take my skills and set up a business and make some money. But the coaching business is truly a passion of mine. I love it. And I give my cell phone out to my clients in the coaching business and say they can call me 24/7. And it's not uncommon for at least, once a week, 9:30 at night, the cell phone rings and somebody's calling. They just either got some bad news, or they got to deliver some bad news tomorrow, or they're going to present at a board meeting and they've never done it and their anxiety level's high. And, we kind of work with them on, getting them through that, and it's fun.
When did that start? The passion for helping people.
Well, that was really early on. I don't know if you want me to fast reverse.
So I want to do one. I want to do one thing quick, and because it's on my mind, and if I don't catch it when it's there, it's gone. Never be back. And here's what it is.
ADD is a wonderful thing.
I've got something. You've got a challenge right now. So I moved on, and I haven't announced this podcast, but to a chairman role in my business. My wife Cheryl needs a lot more attention. Right. She's had a tough go of it the last month or so.
Which, by the way, I'm going to interrupt you for a minute. Yeah. I just want you to know, Gary, and I'm sure you do, but I'll just tell you this because I know it. There are literally hundreds of people out there that think and pray about you guys every day.
I appreciate that.
I mean,
it's awesome.
Really.
I appreciate that, and it means a lot because it's making a difference. And we're very very strong Catholic Christians. It means a lot to us, right? Yeah. And she feels it. She feels prayer actually, and it sounds kooky, but she does. And
we've been in that situation, as you know,
right.
with my son, and so you can feel it. You really can feel it.
It's awesome, and right now, the last 10, 11 days, she's been doing amazing. And
that's great.
So we went to the therapy in Austria. I don't think I talked about that on this podcast yet, but Austria here. Did I talk about that before? About a month ago, we got back, and she went downhill fast to where she couldn't move her left side. On and on. Anyway. Bottom line is she's kicking butt the last 10 days. She's getting better and better and better and better every day. She walked 60 feet the other day, which is a big deal. She had no use of her left side for a few weeks. So either way, things are, it's awesome what we're seeing out of her right now.
Good.
So God's working in this amazing way. But when I looked at that these things are going on in my life. So in my business, I step up. I say to a chairman role. I talk to my board. My board says, I'm thinking, is Austin capable? Does he want it? Or do I look for a CEO? Do I go to my buddy Scott and find a CEO? I didn't see anybody in-house right now that's ready. And my board says, you're nuts. Austin's ready. He's not a kid anymore that you think he is. He's ready. He's 32. He's doing a great job with the site, the companies he's operating. Just get off your dead ass and make him the CEO. And so I did that, right? And he's doing a great. The last couple of weeks it's only been, but he's asking the right questions. He's diving in deep, and I love it. But either way, when I look at the situation we have now, we have a great company that's growing fast. It's an amazing value. It's called Site. Mm-hmm. Site is now partnered with an Israeli company that's unbelievable. We're going to be able to see groundwater and water leaks in the ground anywhere from 8 to 20 feet below grade, anywhere in the world. Okay. This Israeli company was the one that NASA uses today to discover where water is on Mars, Venus, and any planet in our galaxy. Okay, they discovered the technology to do that using satellites. They're our partners now. We're the only ones in the world that are partners with them in this space that we're in, groundwater, right, which reduces the life of pavements. Right. So this site is really developing nicely, and we got to find a CEO for that now. How would you go about finding a CEO? We got to have a CEO that can raise money, that's been there and done it. I don't care if he's failed or won. Hopefully he's won sometimes, right? But he's got to be a CEO that understands technology, AI, and all these things, and yet it's a CEO that people would invest in, whether it's me investing more, outside investors investing. How do you go about finding that? Because I'm going to be picking your brain, and you can tell the audience that now.
No, that's fine. I mean, it's really the ingredient, one of the first ingredients to doing any search, quite frankly, and that is finding like or similar companies out there. They've either had similar growth patterns, they've had similar needs in raising money, startup, mentality that's been able to do a startup or a green field and then take it all the way to the next level. Mm-hmm. Whatever all those ingredients are that we would want to find out from you. What it's a new startup. Is it a joint venture? No, this Israeli company.
It's not the way. So we basically have the licensing to their product for our space. Okay. In America, in North America. All right. We basically are their partner, their exclusive partner for North America. If we build it together strong enough, we'll be their partner globally, because their product now only identifies leaking water in pipes, mostly municipalities all over the world. They're in like 25 countries now. Okay. Right. Our what we're bringing to them is that the commercial industrial relationships of the biggest building owners in the country, where we're looking for groundwater problems that create life expectancy challenges for pavements. Pavement can last 5 years or 20 years. If it's got groundwater problems, 5-10 years is all you're going to get. If it doesn't, it can last 20. Right. So big difference in $10 million pavements, whatever it be, right? Right. So it's interesting. Yeah.
I mean, one of the things we'd want to dive into, and I don't know that we'll do it on this, but we might, is what's the priority of this CEO? Is the priority, and I'm going to use a 30,000 feet measurement of that, is the priority of this business to really understand the business, water, leakage, pavement, effect of one and the other?
We've got the experts, right?
Yeah, that's what I thought.
So it's going to be, you need to understand technology and project management technology. Right. When do you use AI? How do we grow the AI to take over a lot of the legwork, right? Raising money. You better be somebody that's been leading an organization before, that's raised capital, big capital, let's say 20, 50, 100 million bucks, so that we know that this person, as it grows, can raise that same capital on its past history. Right. That'd be a big advantage. I mean, it doesn't have to totally be that big, but of a dollar, let's say, if they've raised 5-10 million bucks before and they've had success raising and created a great benefit to the stockholders, that's probably what we're looking for. But they got to have an understanding of technology, how to use it. And if they had understanding of real estate, that would be a big deal too. If they understood the real estate industry nationally or globally. Right.
So those would be, you just named it. Those would be the ingredients that we would need to find in an individual. So the idea after that is to get those ingredients and then go out and look at markets or targets of companies or markets, and more generically, that require all of those same things. Like it might be somebody from private equity that's done money raise before, that's taken a company from private to public, or whatever all those ingredients are. Okay. And then it's whittling it down to a manageable number. I always talk about, looking at things from a manageable perspective, whether it's somebody looking for a job or whether it's somebody a client that we're looking for an individual. You can only look for so many ingredients, 6, 8, 10 major ingredients. And then you try to filter from there.
Okay.
So the first part to answer your question would be probably developing a list of 100 to 150 companies that would have similar situations going on at their early stage. And then we would want to go find somebody within those companies that's got P&L responsibility that's walked through those same things that are required.
Cool.
So they bring those experience to this role.
And there's some people that have built something and sold it, right? They were the president, maybe CEO, maybe chief technology officer that had P&L responsibilities, that grew it, sold, had a payday,
right?
And maybe they got some money in the bank, and if they were able to invest a little bit and had some skin in the game, even better for us, right?
That's right.
So that's kind of the way we think.
Yeah,
so,
an entrepreneurial mindset that loves the build. It's not necessarily the guy always that can keep the wheels on and get that 2 to 4% growth every year. It's somebody that loves to build and build fast,
scale
and flip
fast.
It. Absolutely,
that's what we need. So we're going to be talking about that.
All right.
And then you talk about coaching. We'll go to coaching.
Yeah.
Now we've got Austin, a 32-year-old CEO.
Yeah.
We've got a new CEO potentially there. We've got a young team here of leaders. Janelle, my daughter, has actually taken over the president role at Ray-Ban America. My leader there has gone off now to partner with me in another business. Just like we as entrepreneurs think, we had another opportunity. We saw maintenance being a little niche market within Ray-Ban America that we were serving very well. My leader there said, Gary, I just want to go off and run this maintenance thing. Can I do that? And I said, yeah, as long as you replace yourself. So he's replaced himself with Janelle now. And so he's mentoring her into that seat while he goes off to run Ray-Ban America maintenance, right? He's calling it RAM. And so again, now Janelle, 30-year-old leader in this business. It's about it was about a $40 or $50 million company, right? A lot of responsibility for a young person, right? We're confident she's got all the right traits and cultural traits that we want. She's a great young leader. She's got lots of compassion. She's just really, really good person. Now, does she have the ability to hold people accountable? That's something she's only done in small levels, a person or two at a time, not the team that she's going to have now. So she's got challenges, but she'll get through them because she's smart and she's compassionate. Now, again, think about this team we have. We've got another CEO that's building a company. He's out of Texas now, and he's kicking butt, but he's fastly growing a company there. He's a 37-8-year-old guy that's doing a great job. He's actually he's actually a perfect picture of a young leader that's been there and done it now, and he's and continuing. So either way, we have this group of people that we probably don't put together enough. We've got a great leader of our paving company that's been here for 10 years, and really, really strong leader. Takes everything on his shoulder, really accountable. Not as old as you and I, and we're young guys, but a younger guy than us, right? About 10 years back of us. So either way, when I think about this, how do you look at this organization of 8 companies and all these different leaders running from small to mid-sized companies as opportunity to coach?
Yeah. It's finding the individual skill set. I don't know Janelle or Austin well enough since we're using those as examples. And they are young leaders. So I just think mentoring is critical. It could be an outside third-party coach and that they feel comfortable going to because they don't want to get undressed in front of the people they work with or look like show their weaknesses or their chink in the armor, but they feel comfortable doing it to a third party and being totally open with their kimono and saying, I really don't know how to handle this, but I don't want anybody in my organization to know that.
Sure.
I need to be the face of strength in the organization, if you will. So I think we can add value, or a coach can add value from that perspective. On the whole onboarding process, of really truly onboarding somebody and getting them comfortable and confident in their new role so that they're not skinning their knees and bumping their nose. Some of that's important. Skinning your knees and bumping your nose along the way, you learn by those things, but you don't want to make the big flub. You don't want to make the big mistake.
Yeah.
And sometimes, can be used from that perspective. But, again, Janelle and Austin being examples, we'd want to fully understand Austin's strengths and his developmental areas, which might be completely different than Janelle's.
No,
she might carry a whole different set of skills, but has a different set of areas of development. And so you can't ever coach any two people the same exact way. It's like the old saying, you can't manage everybody exactly the same way. You manage everybody differently.
Sure.
You're going to be more effective and more efficient because you're hitting their buttons. And the same thing goes through with coaching.
So my issue, Scott, and I think anybody listening can understand this, whether you're running a small organization or a big organization, as you grow as a leader and you grow as an owner and you have the most liability as a majority owner, as I do in most of these businesses, right? The biggest thing I think about is risk and reward, right? And I have total confidence. Every leader I have today is awesome. They're great people. They care. They're caring people, and they're hardworking people, right? So I believe I'm in the right position. Now the question though is when it comes to risk and reward, when does their decision making stop and mine begins? As a chairman, as a chairman in our board, right? Because if I was just a board member and a chairman of the board, but I had a couple percent interest in these businesses. You know what? If they're the CEO and they've got 40, 30, 40, 50%, they should have more risk, the ability to risk, right? And take risk and for reward. For me now, it's a matter of, okay, I still have all the risk in these things, right? And so now how do I communicate on a daily, let's say weekly basis, to understand that they roll up all the risk that to me that they should, and they take on all the risk and their day-to-day responsibilities that they should, right?
Yeah.
I mean, how do we look at that? Because that's the biggest challenge I have today is that.
Yeah, and it's interesting because it all boils down to your definition of chairman of the board. Mm-hmm. Some chairmen in companies are strictly at 30,000 feet.
Absolutely.
They're literally unengaged in day-to-day operations. And that's probably the true definition.
I know.
Yours is a little different. There are smaller companies with multiple, divisions with now young leaders, of which in at least these two cases are kids of yours. Mm-hmm. You're just one of those personalities. You're engaged in the business. So for me to sit and say to you, look, you got to be at 30,000 feet. You got to give up day-to-day operations. You can't be involved is probably not realistic. But what is realistic is what is day-to-day operation for you as chairman? Mm-hmm. Is it to get down in the weeds and to solve everybody's problems for them? Or is it to mentor and make sure that they're not creating bad mistakes and they're learning from your experience? And how often does that contact take place? Mm-hmm. Do you guys have set meetings as opposed to dipping in and dipping out, which is my recommendation to everybody. Mm-hmm. And I'll just tell you that. I would say, for example, every day at 10 o'clock, I'm going to talk to Austin, or every Monday at 10 o'clock, I'm going to talk to Austin. And every Thursday at 10 o'clock, I'm going to talk to Janelle. And we're going to talk about an agenda. There's going to be an actual agenda, problem situations, successes you've had along the way, areas that are bothering you. Maybe those are the only 3 topics. And you do that every week, unless there's a major issue going on. Otherwise, if you're dipping in and dipping out unexpectedly, unannounced, the organization doesn't know who's really leading. Yeah. And it creates, people want to go back to Gary.
Sure.
If they think Gary's really running the business, I mean, it's just natural. People are going to do that. Sure. So you need to really communicate highly to the organization who's really in charge, and then give them the opportunity and the responsibility along with the authority to do things.
Sure. And it's a happy medium, right? I have an open door policy. Unless this podcast is going on, my door's open 99% of the time, right? If I got somebody we're talking to, door's open, and people pop in and out, right? And our people in our organization know that's how I operate. And I like everybody else to operate as much as they can that way. Not that they have to, but as much as they can. So with this transparency, of course, it becomes a problem too, right? I want people to know who's here working every day for our organizations, right? I want to know them. I want to love them. They're my friends. But with that, right, I have a hard time not listening to everything they want to say, right. And I should, but yet, where does it go from there, right? Because I can undermine my organization.
That's it.
If I allow too much.
The first question you ought to have to somebody after they walk in your door and explain why they're there, the first question you ought to ask is, have you talked to your boss first?
I usually do after the subject comes up.
Yeah,
but
that's okay. That's okay. You're letting them air their feelings or their vent, or they're going to tell you their problems or whatever it is. But the next question is have you gone to Austin? Does he know this?
Right.
And if he hasn't, then you need to direct them back to him first.
Yeah, and I usually do. When the subject comes up that they have an issue with somebody else, I always ask, hey, did you go to them and talk to them about it, right?
Right.
And probably 60% of the time they haven't, which means there's probably a problem. They're coming to me before that, which
seems like just being aware of the potential is probably step number 1, right? So it's good that you're even aware of it.
Well, Nick, you're around here, dude. What do you think? What is it?
Everything's falling apart. I think there's a fire in the other side of the building right now. But
Get the buckets. Get the buckets.
No, it's going great. It's going
Good.
great.
Good.
So what about, it sounds like the relationship that an executive has to the business that they're going to be part of is pretty unique, right? It's almost like a puzzle piece to fit the culture properly. And but there's got to be some things you could do before you're ready to be an executive that would give you, experience. But is there anything that you could that you can think of that you could, some advice you'd give to people that would like to be in that position eventually, and situations they can put themselves in to be more prepared for that?
Yeah. Two things jump right to my mind as you were asking that question. One is ask for a mentor. Pick your own mentor. Find somebody in the organization that you highly respect, highly regard. You love the way they make decisions. You love the way they manage, and go to that individual and say, would you be my mentor? And literally go to them and ask for a mentor. The second thing is to volunteer. Ask for project work. Ask for something you're interested in. Yeah. If you like doing something in particular, go ask to be involved in that. Yeah. I love being involved in whatever it is, and I'd like to learn more about it. Can I be put on a team, or can I participate? Or I'll work an extra, hour a day if that's what it takes to be involved in a project or do something. And it's I hate to use what's now becoming an overused term, but lean in and ask for stuff. Yeah. Volunteer, put yourself out there.
Express that interest, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I had read a book, I think it was called Stealing Fire, but one of the stories in it was talking about Google's search for their first CEO. And one of the things that they used in it, one of the requirements that they had was that the person had gone to Burning Man. Do you know what Burning Man is? It's like a music festival.
Outdoor festival. Yeah.
But the reason for that was the openness to different experiences, right, and the ability to adapt and operate within weird different experiences. And I thought that was an interesting marker for looking into finding an executive.
Yeah, it is. And I think, I don't want to Google bash here for a minute, but I think Google has a great brand awareness and a great brand reputation as far as a place to go and their products. But Google also has a very high turnover rate. You'd think, wow, it's Google. Everybody wants to work for Google, and what a great place to be. And I'm sure it is, but there's a high turnover rate there for some reason. I don't know if they're working people, 50, 60 hours a week and burn them out, or if leadership is stretched too thin and can't mentor and train people effectively. I'm not sure what's causing that, but I bring that up just as an example because all great brands doesn't mean it's a great place to be, and or it's a great culture fit.
Yeah.
So one more thing I want to ask you, you mentioned hours. When you look at leadership, what type of hours? I mean, you have leaders that say, hey, I'm a 40-hour week leader. I'm gonna lead. I want to be a C-level, but I'm going to work 40 hours a week. That's all I want. I'm not going to work off the clock. I don't find that, in my opinion, as a leader, I want to invest in my businesses, right? Yeah. I want somebody that's on the clock all the time. They got to love this business, love our people so much and our customers so much that they love a call on a Saturday maybe, and they have no problem calling and have a conversation on Sunday because they love what they do, and their family is okay with it because they know their spouse is excited about the conversation they just had on the phone on a Sunday morning, right? Versus the other alternative.
Well, I'm going to tell you about that. Yeah, I'm going to tell you a story, and Chris and I actually touched on this when we were getting ready to kind of set this up and get started, and we were talking about the difference between leadership and getting to a position when I grew up versus millennials today. I mean, when I grew up, when I first got out of college and got my first job in corporate America, I was given a piece of advice, which was your car needs to be in the parking lot, the very first car parked in the morning and the very last car to leave every night. So when the company president or the managers drove in, they would see your car and figure out whose that was and know you must be busting your ass to do a great job. That's how I got into this. Today, that's just not the case. It doesn't happen that way. But I'm going to tell a story to kind of go at your situation here. I was listening to two speakers, actually a YPO event. I'm listening to two CEOs of two very large companies. One's from France and one's from the United States. And I'll make this real short. They were being interviewed by a facilitator in front of a group of people, and they asked the guy from the United States, what's made you a successful leader, and how do you determine whether you've been a successful leader? And he said something basically very similar to what I just talked about. I lead by example. And I'm in the office at 6 a.m. and I'm usually not home until 8 o'clock. And I'm usually there on Saturdays. And if I'm not there, I'm taking emails or doing phone calls. And I work six days a week at least. So that's a short version of his example. They went to the guy from France and they said, how do you lead and how have you maintained or how do you measure your level of success as a leader? And he said, I take about 4 months of vacation every year. I spend a lot of time on my boat in the Mediterranean. I'm usually in the office about 2 days a week. And it was very, very different. But what he said was he measured his success as a leader and leading a company that he did such a great job of hiring and mentoring and training his direct reports that they can run the business without him. And he just does, the 30,000 or 50,000 feet decision-making, and he's involved at that level, which allows him to take 4 months of vacation and work 2 or 3 days a week.
But wait a minute, in France now, that's kind of the required vacation time.
Oh, I'm just saying it was an interesting way to look
that's really cool
at leadership.
Yeah.
One looked at it leading by example and working 70-hour work weeks. And the other one led by example by saying, I got people working for me that are so great.
They're spectacular. Number 2, number 3, and they don't need me.
Yeah, so
they need me for the main decisions.
Gets back to culture.
Yeah.
What's the culture of the business?
True. No doubt about it. And what's the culture of the country that you're and the customers, right?
That's right.
I mean, are your customers demanding that they want to talk to that CEO and they all that's common, right? Or is it a culture where they don't want to talk to the CEO or the leader, right? So yeah, and what have you built? What's the expectation you built? Maybe you're in an industry that doesn't communicate to a high level, but you've created a culture with all your customers where my phone's on 24/7. I've made the mistake to do that. Not a mistake because I like I like what I do, right? So I am available all the time to people. But again, that's not, maybe the next CEO is not. And now we've got a culture switch that's makes it tough for our customers to stay on board.
Again, I hate to overuse the word, but it is a culture difference. I mean, it's how you want to lead. And
I talk about this, but 10, 15 years ago, culture I thought was kind of a joke, right? I mean, come on, you expect people, you pay them, you give them a good check, they come to work, they get their stuff done, and they go home when they got to go home, right? I don't want to hear about this culture crap. And that was probably maybe 10 years, 15, 20 years ago for sure. That's my mentality and my industry's mentality, right? Now, I mean, I realize how important that is because, boy, we have great people because of our culture, and then we have really bad fits sometimes because of our culture, and it's a good reason. There's a good reason for the bad fit,
right?
But either way, without those values, those consistent values that we drive, who are you, right? If nobody knows who you are, nobody knows the direction you're going in. They don't know where their seat in the bus is now or where it should be in the future. Right. So I'm so pumped up about our culture now and in the future and where it's going to go because we do strive to understand it, strive to know our team. If it's got to be tweaked and changed every 5-6 years, we'll do it. Right.
Yeah, and I'm sure that you've seen a lot of changes with how technology has been creeping into our lives and the introduction of just always being available, right? And I don't know what it was like when you had first started off, but I'm sure it wasn't as prominent as it is today. Where,
No, I can tell you when I first started, it was definitely not prominent. Sure. Technology for me was a phone.
Yeah.
And then real technology was, I remember I might have been 25 years old and I was probably one of the first guys to ever get a car phone. Literally, it was mounted in my trunk.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The power unit was in the trunk.
Until the bag phone came along. And then you had the 10-pound battery over your shoulder, right?
And then the brick phone.
The brick phone, that was next. That was cool.
That was high tech. Yeah. So it's a lot different today. There's no question.
Do you still have the same phone number you had back then?
No.
I do.
No.
I still have the same cell number.
Wow. No, I don't.
Yeah, I mean, it's in your life all the time now, right? And you just got to be a healthy management to that too, I'm sure.
Yeah,
right?
it's discipline. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you want to be on the phone and you want to be on calls or you want to be on emails or text messages 24/7, you can do it. Mm-hmm. I prefer not to do that. Mm-hmm. I make myself available, as I said, to my coaching clients 24/7, and I do that. But I have never had a situation where somebody calls me and I felt it was an unnecessary phone call. It's usually they use good judgment. My clients have used really good judgment. If they're calling me at 11 o'clock at night, it's for a really good reason.
Yeah.
So I enjoy that. I invite that. That's very different than somebody just checking in all the time or asking you permission to do something, or what would you do if you were me all the time. That's just a little monotonous.
Okay, so I want to go back to in time then.
Yeah.
So we got a summary of who this buddy of mine is, right? But and Scott's not going to brag about the champion he is at so many things when it comes to building business, right? And an acquisition, acquiring businesses, selling a business, right? Which you've been through all that, and then building another business, right? And bringing your son into the business and family into the business. All these things you're doing are unbelievable, and you've led. You've been a leader in the space from anybody I talk to, anybody I know that's in the space. My buddy Scott Robinson, and their eyes light up. Oh, I know Scott. Yeah, that guy is unbelievable. And my CFO right now knows you, and you don't know him probably, but he's actually our COO now. He went from CFO to CO. That's a great hire we did without you. Oh. Okay, it happens. It happens. A friend of ours was bought out by a large private equities group, and he was going to go another direction, and we were able to get him. But anyway, but he knows. I told him about you, and he goes, "Oh, Scott Robinson's known all over the industry. He's the best." So you won't brag about all that, but let's hear about what made you who you are today. Let's hear about your upbringing, and I'd love to hear your upbringing, your mom, pop, what gave you the work ethic and all the cool things that make you.
I sit here and smile as you ask me that question, because it was truly a wonderful period of time in my life. I grew up in a really small town. I grew up in Ottawa, Illinois.
Sure.
My father was an Allstate insurance salesman, and he was Big Al Robinson. And if you bought insurance, if you needed insurance, and you
went to Big Al.
You knew who he was. And I learned from that. I mean, he was a guy that was all about customer service. He worked for Allstate Insurance, which was a great company, but he was available 24/7. I do remember getting phone calls, and he would get phone calls at midnight. My daughter was out in her car with 3 friends and wrapped her car around a telephone pole. What do we need to do? And he would always make himself available. My mother, who was truly a very business savvy person, never went to college. I don't even think my mother finished high school, quite frankly. She was a vice president of a bank and a branch manager, and ran a bank. And talk about customer service, and knowing between my parents, one of the two of them knew everybody in a town of 16,000 people. I mean, everybody. So I grew up in that kind of a family, where you got involved, you participated, you served on school boards or Kiwanis Club or Lions or whatever all those things were in a small town. That's just what you did. And it was part of your responsibility as being a citizen. And I learned that really early on, which is why I've always been uber involved in actually anything I get involved in. I like to just add value and participate. And that's kind of defines who I am. But yeah, I mean, I had some great experiences and mentors and people throughout my life. I was, again, I don't brag, but I'm talking about, who I am. I was the president of my senior class. I was president of student council. I played varsity tennis. I was just always involved. Worked as a kid. I started delivering papers when I was 8 years old. I took my brother's paper route over, and my mother had to sew the paper bag up like way up high because it would drag on the ground because I was so short. And I sold delivered newspapers, and worked at gas stations, and worked in factories, and just kind of.
You always knew how to put cash in your pocket, didn't you?
Yeah. I just didn't want to be dependent on anybody for that.
That's awesome. And what did that mean to you? I mean, when you're able to, make money, your own cash, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old, right? Yeah. How about that feeling?
It's very freeing. It truly is. I mean, if you want to go to the Schwinn bike place and buy a bike, you can do it. Yeah.
Free spirit is what I was looking for. I was looking for that at Sears, the Sears store in Fox Lake. My eyes glowed at the free spirit, the new free spirit bikes every time they came out, right? Yeah. Eventually I bought myself one of those. There you go. Paid cash for that thing.
Yeah.
Like $175, I think it was back then. It was the best.
The thing you made me have a great memory. I just remember being 8, 9 years old, working a paper route, and just simple things like having to balance a budget. I had to pay for the newspapers.
Absolutely.
And then I delivered the newspapers. And then once a week I had to collect the money and make change and make sure there was money in the account to pay for the papers the following week.
Give a few extra smiles and a little conversation for a little bigger tip. Instead of 50 cents this week, maybe $1.50, right?
That's right.
What paper was it?
The Daily Times.
I delivered the Tribune, the Chicago Tribune. I delivered.
Yeah, the Daily Times in Ottawa, Illinois.
Did you have
I had 51 on my route, 51 newspapers.
I only had 35 to 40 I had at any one time. But we had these Sunday papers that are stupid, crazy heavy. Did you have those?
No.
Ours were like 5 inches thick, every paper. It's crazy. You had to stuff them with all this garbage in them on Sundays. And it was heavy. I mean,
so you're delivering them on bicycles?
Bicycle,
Yeah,
in the wintertime?
Fun story about that is I remember I was going to create efficiency, looking for faster ways, more efficient ways. So I thought if I took 5 or 10 minutes and wrapped a rubber band around a newspaper and then threw it from my bike, I wouldn't have to walk up to each doorstep and stick it in the door, saving an enormous amount of time. The Capitani's house right next door to mine was the very first paper I delivered every single day. Mm-hmm. The very first time I did it, I threw the newspaper and threw it right through their glass. So I had to learn. I had to do some things different. But I had to tweak the system.
But think about that, right? Nowadays, unfortunately, kids don't have the opportunity to do these jobs, right? At any age they want, right? And then we have these laws against that stuff, right? A kid could want to work as much as they want to work at 12, 13, 14, 15 years old. And boy, there's no jobs for them.
Right.
And the law says you can't work that kid. That's wrong. That's illegal for that 12, 13-year-old kid to work. Right. But boy, if they want it bad enough, it's such a great lesson.
Yeah.
I mean, think of the lessons you learned right there in efficiency. You're thinking efficiencies. Well, gosh, you took that into your business world 20, 30, 40 years later and today.
That's right. That's right.
So, I mean, that's an advantage for you to have and I to have that kids don't have today.
Well, I always look at it as failures too. I mean, when you're young and you're failing, that's a way easier thing to do than when you get older, right?
To pay for that glass door, I had to pay for
there
goes your profits for a month.
I'm telling you, you learn real quick. You got to fix things when you do stuff like that.
So I made $6 a week is what I made. And then my tips, I hoped and prayed that I'd get a few dollars in tips every week. So it was somewhere between $8 and $10 a week that I'd make on my paper route. And that was 7 days a week. Yeah. Right. I don't know what you made.
About that. I was probably making about that. And mine luckily was, we had 6 days a week. We didn't do Sunday papers.
You dirty rat. You got to win. You probably made as much as me too. I know.
Well, I had 51 papers. You only had 36.
Right. Okay. There you go.
That's a long route in the wintertime.
It was.
Man.
It was.
So I had a picture of me when I was like 11, 12 years old. I was in a boat. We were in an area that flooded. We were in a low rent district where we lived, right? Because it flooded every year. It was old cottages that turned into full-time homes, and nobody was prepared for the flooding that happened every spring and sometimes fall. So I had a picture of me delivering papers in a boat, and it was funny because I had to get those papers delivered, and I didn't think any of it. But that took a picture. It was in the Tribune. Here's a kid delivering the Chicago Tribune in a boat. And I got all my papers delivered. And these people, half of them weren't home, but half of them were in their homes while they're flooded totally around them. Right.
Work ethic.
But again, I just had to figure out how to get them to them. I didn't realize that this was different than the other newspaper boy. I thought anybody would do this.
Right.
I guess some people shut it down.
The newspaper's gonna be all soggy then when they get it too, right? So
no, I usually kept it dry. I figured out a way to keep it dry, however it was. Usually their stoops were dry, otherwise they for sure weren't home, right? But fighting the carp to get there was a whole nother story.
Luckily, you didn't have Asian carp jumping in your boat.
We had some big carp. I had a spear in my boat, and after I delivered papers, I would spear carp where they'd be caught in an area. Yeah. It was
Well, speaking of
whole nother story.
Speaking of kind of fun stories and things that went on and how you grew up, to tell you how small a town it was. I had a buddy of mine, Paul Girding, and I would get up in the morning at 3:30 every morning during duck hunting season, and we would literally go out on the river in a boat and go to our duck blind in the morning before school and go duck hunting. We would drop our take that day off at the shore. My mother would pick it up and then bring it back to the house so we could clean it later. But we would walk to school with shotguns, uncased, and put them in our locker. And then leave school at 3:30 and go back out duck hunting in the afternoon until dark.
What would happen today, right?
Oh, can you imagine bringing a shotgun to school today?
Yeah.
Anyway, those are fun stories from my childhood. But I'll talk a business story, just for fun. Jack Cassidy, there was 3 men that owned a gas station in our town called Jensen Rutledge Cassidy, JRC. And literally there could be gas stations all over town with nobody at the pumps. And this was a gas station that people would literally line up out into the street to wait for fuel because they knew how to treat people like a customer.
Wow.
They didn't ask if you wanted the windows washed. They didn't ask if you wanted the oil checked. They didn't ask if you wanted the air pressure in your tires checked. They just did it.
Awesome.
Every single time. And Jack Cassidy, I learned a great story once. He would it had a coffee machine. You put a nickel in and bought a cup of coffee in a paper cup. And I remember him doing that. And I thought I was going to be a smart, young entrepreneur at 15, by the way. And I said, Jack, I got a really good idea. Why don't we go to the store and buy one of these 25 cup coffee makers and just put it out in front and make a pot of coffee. And when somebody comes in, you give them a styrofoam cup full of coffee rather than going in and put a nickel in the machine. He said, Scott, you don't understand the difference. He said, if I did that, I would be giving them a free cup of coffee. By going in and placing a nickel in the machine and asking them how they like their coffee with cream and sugar and pressing the button for them and visiting them with them while the coffee's being made and then handing it to them, that's marketing. So I learned my first marketing lesson at 15 about
relationship building.
Huh? That's it. It was relationship building. That's what they were all about.
That's awesome. So do you know that this might be a popular service in the future, right? Do you hear about Illinois? Illinois is trying to pass a bill right now where we can't pump our own gas anymore. It's on the table right now.
I'm all about that.
How about that?
I'd love it for go back to full service gas stations.
But how crazy is though? You can't pump it if you want to. Now I like to pump my own gas. I like the smell of gas. Maybe I don't know about asphalt gas. But anyway, you're not going to be able to do it if they pass this bill. And the cost of gas, which we're one of the most competitive gas prices in the country. Not right. We're one of the highest now.
It'll skyrocket with that.
It'll be 30, 40 cents more a gallon
at least. Yeah.
And then they might unionize that and think what that look like. So either way, it's crazy.
What's their justification for the change? Why do they want to change
They
it?
talk about environmental, that we're not smart enough not to spill it, right? And then there's methods you can use that make sure you don't spill it, right? Either way, but bottom line is mostly environmental and job creation. This is job creation for these smart people way smarter than us, of course.
Yeah,
running our state. Wow. Either way, no politics. Get out the politics, Scott. Okay,
I'm not bringing it up.
Back to the business story. I love it. I love that the customer service that drove people to line up when they didn't have to, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
How awesome
people
is that?
couldn't wait to be told that they were good looking that day, or boy, you look like you've lost weight, or whatever. That's a great tie you have with your suit, Bob. I mean, they would love that.
Cool.
And that's what these guys were so great at. So they put, in a total, 9 kids through college, 3 guys on a gas station.
Wow.
But think about that differentiation, right? It's something simple everybody can do. There's no business out there. None. They can't separate themselves by going over the top with a customer service like that, right? And I know we talk about all day long, but do we go that far? I don't think so.
That's an easy differentiator.
It's huge.
If you just focus on it.
Isn't that awesome?
Customer service. Because somebody told me once, an old boss of mine 1,000 years ago, Charlie Powell, I haven't mentioned his name in 30 years, but he said, if you get into the executive search business, all you have to do is do what you say you're going to do, because nobody else does that. Wow. And I'll never forget that quote. So I just said, when I get in this business, I'm just going to do what I say what we say we're going to do. Just follow through.
Let's go there. Let's go. Your school, like let's say college. Where'd you go?
I went to Illinois State University. I played tennis at Illinois State University.
Is that Ivy League?
No.
I pictured you as an Ivy League. I messed that up. Okay.
No, not Ivy League at all. It was a great place to go to school, though, and I got a great education there. And then I always knew graduate school was going to be in my future. So I graduated from college with a degree in psychology. I was going to be a psychologist. That was my passion. I had a high school psychology teacher. It was just Don Sutherland was his name. And it's probably the only high school teacher I can remember his name, but I do, because he was my favorite teacher and psychology was my favorite subject. So I got an undergraduate degree in psychology. I went to go work on a doctorate at George Williams. And I got about 2.5 years into this program, or 2 years into it. And I went with a professor friend of mine, Richard Dorgan, to some private clinical practices. He had a private practice to do marriage and individual counseling. And I got permission to go and do a 3-month practicum with him, and his clients would sign a release letting me kind of sit in the corner and watch what he did. And I just absolutely hated that job. It was depressing. Everybody's glass was half empty. I'm like Gary, my glass is always half full. And it was just down. It was too down for me. So I went to Richard.
How long did you work there for before you realized that?
Oh, I was there maybe 2 weeks.
Oh, okay.
Literally.
It was quick then.
Yeah. And then within 3 months, my practicum was done. And I said, now I don't know what to do with myself. And he gave me great advice. He said, Scott, stay here and finish your master's in clinical psychology, and then add a master's in business, get your MBA, and go into corporate America. So that's what I did. And my wife, who will listen to this podcast, will laugh at this next comment. But my wife at the time, I was married, going through graduate school. She was working full time. I wasn't working for our first 2.5 years of marriage.
Deb was your sugar mama.
She was my sugar mama. And listen to this. Not only that, she worked at Federal Signal Corporation, and she worked for the chairman of the company. And when I graduated from graduate school, Federal Signal hired me. And that was my first job. They thought enough of her and her work ethic to put this crazy guy through college, through graduate school, that they thought.
This is a little bit the start, like the start of the Obama story. It sounds like, right?
Oh, we weren't going there. I thought we were going to politics. Let's stay away from that.
She not only is her sugar mama, she found you. She had to find you a job because you couldn't find it yourself. Probably.
She would stay after work every night and type my thesis for my graduate degrees. And finally, the chairman said, "What are you doing here every night? Till 7 or 8 o'clock at night?" And she said, "My husband's in graduate school." And he said, "I want to meet this guy." So we set up a coffee, and I met with the chairman of the company. And I don't know if he felt sorry for her or liked me, but either way, he gave me my first shot, which is where, quite frankly, I got some unbelievable experience way too fast for what I was ready for. But happenstance was the situation. I felt I was in the right place at the right time, knowing the right people.
Right.
All three very good ingredients to success.
Yes.
And I met a guy named Tim Covey. Who is my mentor and still is to this day. I mean, he's now in his 70s and lives and retired in Wisconsin. But Tim Covey made my career without a doubt. He gave me my first opportunity. And speaking of mentoring, we were talking about that earlier. They fired my boss, and he told me that I was going to do that job. I was the vice president of human resources at the time. Wow. And they fired him. And he said, "You're going to handle this job until we hire his replacement." And long story short, they never did hire his replacement. So I was given that role at the age of like 24.
Wow. Very cool.
For a $1 billion company.
What?
And,
I didn't realize
and
that
he said, "I want you to come into my office every morning at 8 o'clock and tell me what you're going to do. And then I want you to come into my office every night at 5 o'clock and tell me what you did."
Nice.
And he became my mentor. And I learned how to negotiate union contracts and
holy cow,
hire and fire and
how
run.
valuable is that for your future?
And then he left Federal Signal and was recruited as the chief operating officer and president for a large group of companies for Bally Corporation. And he recruited me to Bally Corporation as his vice president of human resources. So at 26, I think I was a VP of HR.
So through this time, you're learning all about recruiting too.
I was recruiting and coaching and managing and mentoring. But
for the start of this thing, I mean, it was Deb that got you the job. I mean,
that's why I've been married 38 years.
I think you still use Deb as I mean, you got to close something big. I bet you bring her along with you because you out-hit your coverage by so much. It's crazy. I'll kick your coverage, I should say, right? This woman, good, beautiful blonde. I guess you're about the same age, but nobody'd believe it if they saw the two of you together. Wait, and you don't look any older than you are. You actually look a little younger, but she makes you look old, buddy. I'm telling you, she's beautiful. She's sharp.
Right.
You still using her to close things like that?
Well, I'll tell you a funny story. I left Bally Corporation to start a company. It now goes back 33 or 34 years ago to start this company. And one of the services we were.
How old were you at that time then? You don't mind.
I was 29.
Wow.
28. So I'm 62.
To start this company, you're 29.
Yeah. And one of the businesses we were going to have was going to be the outplacement business. We were going to work with companies when they let people go.
Sure.
And I literally just started this business. I didn't even hardly have a manual done yet for the outplacement, which I wrote. And I was trying to sell outplacement services back in the day, along with executive search. Those were the two businesses at the time. And my wife, Debbie, went to a bar one night with a bunch of girlfriends. And there was a hockey team in this bar partying that was the sponsor of their team. It was a restaurant in Naperville, a Mexican restaurant in Naperville. Long story short, she met the vice president of sales and marketing for Polaroid. They got into a discussion and he said, she said, what's the biggest problem you're having at work right now or something? He said, well, I feel really awful. I've got to let 30 people go next week. And she said, well, my husband's in the
That's
outplacement
funny.
business. She sold my very first piece of outplacement business to Polaroid Corporation by going out for cocktails
that's awesome.
and meeting a guy on a hockey team.
That's great. Yeah. So the 2.5 years in grad school, right?
Yeah.
Did you know what you wanted to do?
No.
Okay.
I was just taking the advice of a guy that I really respected, Dr. Dorgan, and I just figured if I got a master's and an MBA that I'd find something.
Yeah.
And Federal Signal luckily had a GE-based rotation program. So I would spend, a month in one role, then a month in another role, then a month in another role.
Yeah.
And I happened to wind up in HR right when they were negotiating a union contract. And it was very, very ugly. The union didn't like us, and we didn't necessarily like the union.
Yeah.
And I thought that was kind of a silly, goes back to Gary's comment earlier about, I can't imagine, I write them a check and they do the work. And, that was kind of the mentality. Culture wasn't a consideration. And so I didn't think that made a lot of sense. So I asked to meet with John Cariglio, the business agent of the union, and resolve 101 outstanding grievances, and also negotiate a contract to get a change of work rules and be able to move people around more fluidly, which saved us a lot of money, which allowed us to give them more money than they were asking for.
Wow,
so not only did the company save millions of dollars, but the union employees got more money than they were asking for.
Yeah.
So after that event, I was kind of the labor relations guy. So I would travel around negotiating union contracts after that.
Wow.
That's a short story to a very long story.
No, that's interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah.
And then when did it sounds like before that even there was a passion for helping, and coaching. And is there something that came into your life that was really revealed that to you, or?
I can't say there was an instance. I goes back to my high school teacher in psychology and understanding human behavior. And I really got enamored with motivators. What motivates you to do what you do versus the same thing doesn't necessarily motivate Gary, and the same thing doesn't necessarily motivate Chris. So it was very interesting to me how if you could figure out what the motivators were in an individual, you could get them to perform at a higher level, whether it be personal life or work life.
Sure.
And I found that just super fascinating. And then I kind of got into the whole marketing thing and what motivates people to buy one product over another, and the psychology of marketing, and it all just kind of evolved through that.
So it seems like a simple thing, right? But boy, what a great point that is, right? If you can figure out what motivates people, they're going to work harder. They're going to work faster, harder, more efficiently. They're going to love what they do. They're not going to count hours, right?
Right.
And that's something I think we're all probably weak at usually.
Yeah.
Right? We kind of think we expect people to be motivated by something, whether it be dollars or whatever. We kind of expect something, and we perceive that when it may not be true sometimes.
Right.
And so that might be when we don't get the production we're looking, or the output we're looking for out of that person, right?
Yeah, it is. And I'm probably a little naive to this, but it goes way back where my philosophy comes from. And there's two things that I just kind of live by and have, and that is I don't count vacation time with anybody that works for me, and never have. Whatever people need to take off, they take off as long as their work's getting done. I could care less. And when they're gone, they've got to have somebody backing them up so that when they're not there, that somebody else is responsible. So that's one thing, and then the second thing is I tell people this all the time: treat this business as if you owned it. Make any decision you want with any client you have, or anything you need to do to make this a better place to be. And if it's wrong, we'll figure that out and we'll fix it. But 99% of the time it's right. And it gives them more ownership into the business. It's a good psyche thing for your head to feel like you can make decisions and not have to go to somebody and get an answer all the time. And it gives people a sense of responsibility.
So what an awesome point again, right? I mean, guys, think about this. If you hire for the right culture,
right,
and you know that these people are out for your best interest, the interest of the customer, the interest of your team, right? If you know that,
right,
then why can't they make decisions like they own the business every day?
Absolutely.
Right? And again, I'm not sure we do the best job of that. So I'm gonna have to go back and listen to this, because I probably, I got to be coaching our team on this a little more. But again, it seems simple, but it's a fact. Most people that I know don't do that. They don't tell every person on their team, from the person that's the first day on the team to the 20-year veteran, that this is treat it like your business, and make decisions like it's your own business.
Yeah.
And if you fail, fail fast. Let's learn from the failures. As long as we learn from the failures, we're going to get better, stronger. And
Yeah, I go back to my comment
awesome
earlier about Tim Covey, the guy at Bally and Federal Signal that mentored me. And I'll never forget his now famous quote that I've made famous for him. But it was simple. And his whole theory was common sense prevails. That was his big line. And that's my line. Common sense prevails. So if somebody says to me, you want me to treat this business as if it were my own, how am I going to know how to make the right decision if I'm in a situation? Common sense prevails. Use your common sense, a combination of experience and education and intellect. If you take those three things together along with a bread of common sense, you're going to make the right decision.
Sure.
Almost invariably.
Yeah.
Especially if the hiring process is done right? Because you have that trust.
It goes all the way back to the people you hired. Right. I know it sounds hokey.
Darn Scott, everything goes back to hiring and coaching, mentoring, hiring, coaching.
I hate to say it like a commercial, but it really does. It really does. It's all about the people.
Yeah.
If you have the right machinery to do your business or the right, intellectual property or whatever all those things are that you need to run the business from a technical capacity, what's left?
Yeah.
It's the people.
Yeah. Okay, so let's talk a little briefly about the building your first business. Maybe you acquired some stuff, maybe you didn't. Whatever you did to build Kensington as big and strong as it was.
Right.
Selling that, your baby, kind of selling that, and being out of that space. I think you maybe you stayed on. No, I think you separated and then eventually started again a business.
Correct.
As the entrepreneur, you can't stop doing this stuff. So tell me a little bit. Tell us about that.
I always had this. When you say you're going to be a psychologist, one of the things I think that a lot of people talk about is they think private practice and having your own company, and the idea of having my own company was a big deal to me. So when I left corporate America for reasons we can go into if you want, but it gets down to values, quite frankly. I left corporate America and I decided I wanted to run my own thing. And one of the things I knew that I did really, really well when I was at Federal Signal and Bally was I recruited really good people. Because I paid attention again to culture. I know that's overused, but I did. So we kept people longer and we had smarter people there and we had people add more value, and I knew I could go out and recruit. So I thought setting up a recruiting business would be really, really simple. That was one thing. The outplacement piece was something that I thought people didn't do right. Hold people's integrity in place and make people feel good, as good as you can make people feel as they're walking out the door as they did when they walked in the door. Right. So those were two businesses that I was going to have an impact on. I was going to do a better job of executive recruiting because I was going to focus on culture, and I was going to do a better job of outplacement because I was going to make sure my clients paid attention to the integrity of the people they were walking out the door. Yeah. Little things, simple. Like, for example, I have this philosophy. When you're letting people go, don't let people go on a Friday. And everybody lets people go on a Friday. It's the last day of the week. And the reason is because now they've got all weekend to stew about it. There's really nothing they can do on Saturday and Sunday other than sit with their spouse and complain and talk about why they got fired and whose fault it was and how terrible the company is. Let somebody go on a Monday or Tuesday. They've got all week to begin the process.
Do you pay them for the rest of the week or no?
I would, but yeah. So anyway, I got into this business, and very, very quickly we gathered some colleagues that I had and created this partnership, which is now Kensington International, which is still in business, by the way, and a great company. Yeah. Long story short, I stayed at that company for 24 years. We grew it to a very, very successful executive search, executive outplacement, and executive coaching business. I had actually started the coaching business there, and I called it Executive Solution. That was the name of the company because it was going to be solutions for executives who typically don't feel like they have anywhere to go to. It's it's loneliest at the top kind of a philosophy.
Was that a division or was it a separate company?
It was, we had set it up as a subsidiary. I think it was under a different P&L, but all three of those businesses were under separate P&Ls, but they were all under the Kensington name. And then 24 years later, I left. We can go into that later if you want. and was going to semi-retire and do what I really wanted to do, which was my passion for executive coaching. So I started this little business in an office much like this by myself. I was going to work 20 hours a week, and
I remember that. I remember you talking about that.
It was just going to be me, and I was going to make it really super simple, and I failed miserably at that. We've got a bunch of great people working there, and we built it out, and it's a really fun place to be.
That's really
and
cool.
now we're in the executive search business, in the executive coaching business.
Wow. Yeah, it's got to be a fun place to be if you're there leading it, buddy. I mean,
well, we have fun. Yeah, and we have great people.
Yeah.
I mean, great people. With the new addition, as you know, my son started with me about 9 months ago, and he's starting a new business.
Let's talk about that. Bringing a family member in that you.
It's a scary proposition.
Yeah.
It can go really, really well and be a lot of fun, or it can crash and burn. I mean, it really can. And I believe me, I work with a lot of companies in the executive coaching business that have relatives in the business, and that's one of their biggest headaches is the fact that there are relatives in the business. But that's a whole different topic.
Yeah.
So Taylor Robinson, my son, has great experience. He's got great common sense. He's got great energy and insight. He worked with me out of college. He went to work for another organization, and they did a great job of mentoring and grooming and training him. And he brings that wisdom and experience now to this new role. It's a company called SearchWorks. And it started through a client of ours. A client called and said, look, you guys are killing it doing searches for us at the executive level, and we're just dying hiring managers. We can't hire a manager or a director level position. It's just, we can't find them, and it's not working for us. Would you do that? Well, Robinson Resource Group wasn't set up to do that level of search because we had to downsize it, skinny it down, make it more efficient, kind of be responsive to the contingency marketplace that's out there. But I didn't want to be in the contingency business. As you know, I don't like being a vendor. I like being a partner.
Right. Yeah.
So we had to design this business of how can we be a partner and how can we add value and yet compete with the contingency market space. So we developed a process to do that for this client, and he's now running that company and starting up. We just started in January. So I'm excited as heck about it for him and for us. And he's going to kill it.
Very cool.
I told you didn't even know about this. I got a meeting with him on Friday morning. I can't wait.
Yeah, you're going to have a blast.
No doubt.
Yeah,
no doubt.
It's really fun. And he's totally stoked about it.
How cool is that?
Yeah.
So what else do you see in the future for your young career, dude? Where are you going next?
I'm really having fun. I've made the decision that I don't want to grow this business anymore. We're in a great position where everybody is self-managed. I don't manage anybody. I have the best executive assistant. I hate calling her that, but that's what she demands that I call her. And to me, she's our vice president of operations working for me, Lynn Patton, who just makes my life easy as heck. Yeah. And everybody that works there is completely self-managed. I manage no one. I really don't even manage the numbers. I have two people that do that, and I'm able to focus on what I love to do, which is executive search and executive coaching.
Awesome. How about the value of that great executive assistant, right?
Oh.
I mean, Debbie Furlano is mine in the same way. She gets it done, and there's no babysitting. She babysits me, I guess, or there's some babysitting because she babysits me. But I mean, how cool is it when you got somebody that looks out for your best interest every day, knows how you think, and uses her common sense to make decisions that you would make, right?
Yeah, if anybody that has an executive assistant that's really, really good and then loses one will have a huge hole.
Absolutely.
And those that don't have executive assistants, I can't even tell you how much I would urge you to get one. And I use a simple mathematical tool. Figure out what it is you make every hour and how much money you spend booking your own appointments and your own flights and doing your own emails and writing your own letters and all the other stuff that she does for me and for us. And you multiply that out, the expense to the business and how much more efficient you can be if you took all that time and did what you're really good at and let her, in this case, Lynn, do what she's really good at. It just creates it's a synergistic effect. It's 1 + 1 = 5.
So another nugget right there, right? I mean, if you know what you're passionate about, what you're good at, what delivers the most value back to your business, right? Then focus on that. And I've not been great at this. Again, I'm talking about this. I'm better at it now than I ever was, but I'm not great at it. And then what can you offload to somebody like that person? Debbie is 500% better than me at all of those things that I was doing before.
Yeah.
Right. And yet I was doing a lot of it. And this is 7, 8, 9 years ago. Today, I focus on the things that I love doing, that I know I'm better at, that I'm bringing more value back to my organization. So I don't want her to hear this, but she's worth way more than I could ever pay her.
Yeah. Well, that's absolutely true.
We'll have to cut that, Chris. We have to cut that, please.
You know what? And if you're hiring really good people that are really good culture fits and you're treating them like partners, everybody you have is worth really much more than what you're paying them.
Absolutely.
I mean, at the end of the day, it really is true.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, you know what? I think we've got a lot more we can get out of this. We could sponge a lot more out of this sponge right here. We could squeeze a lot more out of this sponge if we had him here a little longer. But
come back again, Scott.
We'll have to have him come back again, right, Nick?
Yeah.
And Nick, it was pretty cool that you stepped in to be my partner in this one, because
I love it.
How about it, huh?
Thanks.
This guy went to school for
opportunity.
psychology. He loves business. Went to school for psychology. I said, man, your degree is going to help you in so many ways in business, because we have to understand, everybody around us, understand, how do we treat them to be most important, right? For them to know they're the most important person in the room. How do we understand their paradigm to do that? This guy's way better at it than I am, and I know you, Scott, you're a champion at it. So he might want to sponge off you someday.
Yeah, it's been an honor. Yeah,
Great. No, I appreciate it.
But
this has been fun.
Well, we love having you, buddy. Chris, do you want to go through the takeaways? We'll do it afterwards. Okay, so afterwards he got some takeaways he's going to go after and throw them in later. But Scotty, we really are appreciative of having you today. You're an amazing guy and a great friend, and your story is awesome.
Thank you.
We're blessed to have you, buddy, and I'm confident that the people listening to Ditch Digger CEO are going to get some mentoring out of this. And again, how many times did you mention mentoring, right? We talk about it all the time, but how many times did you mention mentoring, the mentorship you got? And you mentioned a few of those mentors, right? And the mentoring you do today and how fun it is, right? Yeah. To be able to grow this.
Well, the thing that's interesting about mentoring, and I've just learned this recently, is this whole idea of reverse mentoring. And putting an older employee with a younger employee, younger guys can teach you how to use technology more efficiently and can mentor you in areas that you're not good at, and yet the older guys can mentor the experience and the wisdom. So it's kind of a fun process, a two-way street. It's not just a one-way street.
You're right. Well, in mentoring, I realized that as I've been doing speaking engagements and doing a little bit of mentoring here and there myself over the years, I learned so much more, because if I'm going to mentor somebody, I want to be prepared, or if I'm going to speak in front of a group of people as kind of an expert or whatever, right? I got to be prepared. Right. So I dig in and I try to learn a little more, or at least think of the high points I need to talk about that are the most important. And sometimes the high points come out, they're not things I'm strong at. And I talk about a subject because I think I know a lot about it. Then I dig into it and say, how can I do the best job speaking about it? And I find out that, boy, you know what? I hear this point more than the points I'm delivering. I got to include that point. Right. And so then you investigate more and you get to be stronger at whatever you're mentoring on also. Right. And you don't expect that, but in mentoring you get stronger as well. So. Right. So Nick, what do you think, dude? Are you satisfied?
I think so.
All good.
It seems like you guys are still, with all the experience you have, you're still open to learn, and you're learning, all the time. And that's something that I could definitely take away. Yeah.
So Scott, thanks for being here today. We really appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks very much.
And you know what? Until next time, on Ditch Digger CEO, we enjoyed having it all here, and have a great rest of the day. See ya.